Welcome back for another week of Centenarian Club, everybody. We're officially on our bi-weekly schedule, and we're just so happy and lit up that we actually got some time to really prep for the class. I mean, we always would prep, but it was actually really refreshing to have time to prep for today's class, so we can make it as information, hopefully interesting and full of new information for you guys. Um, and if you had a chance to look at our schedule, we posted in Slack and Facebook. If you're not in our Facebook group yet, please do. We're going to be transitioning everything over there shortly, within the month. But we did post a schedule. It's a photo of a schedule that we did for the next 4 weeks. So this week, we're going to be talking about female hormones and how that like a traditional Chinese medicine perspective on it. We're going to be continuing this discussion on July 17th, so in 4 sessions. In between now and then, we will be doing falafel making and hummus making. Both require chickpeas to be soaked overnight. So we're kind of gonna try and do both in the same day next week. So today we're gonna send out some things that you'll need to buy for next week's, no, sorry, not next week's class, 2 weeks from now class. So it'll be a chickpea based class. And then after that, we're gonna go into goals. So we have the next 4 weeks laid out. Check it out. We're going to start to invite people into the Google Calendar. That was Solange's idea. Tried to make an event. Tanya was just saying that it was a successful event on Facebook. I couldn't really understand it. So we're going to try and figure out the Facebook events too, so that it's very easy for you guys to see what's coming up and get excited for it. And we're happy to have you guys here. Michelle is back for the first time. No pressure, Michelle, to say anything. I know you're changing your baby right now, but Michelle had a beautiful baby boy, which we were blessed to be able to see his beautiful face just before we started recording. So happy you're here. That's my win of the day. So if you guys have any other wins, we'd love to hear from you. All of a sudden, cameras are off and everyone's muted. No win. Okay. Oh, Tanya's back. Do you have a win, Tanya? No. Do you have a win?
Well, Centenarian Club win is that we obviously like the big changes, but then also we've been speaking to Veronique and getting a lot closer to solidifying our weekend. So we've kind of just been coming up with different ideas and trying to get like a flow of the weekend. And I'm sure it won't play out exactly as we planned anyways, but I feel like it's finally manifesting. It's been an idea for a while and it's finally happening now. So we're very excited about that, and that's going to be awesome. So I hope all of you guys can make it. If not, I mean, hopefully if it's successful, we'll do it again in the future. But plan is that we'll have a nice immersive experience, have a chance to see each other face to face, and yeah, just have a lot of fun. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah. Yeah, that will be fun. Okay, well then no wins, Krista says, and I know Michelle's busy with babe, so well, let's get into our session. But yes, next time we're gonna start thinking of some wins. No pressure, no pressure. Okay, so I'm just gonna share this document in the chat. And then we'll also share screen for those watching the recordings just to make it easier for you. But of course, the document that we're referring to is always in that replay Google Doc. I posted that and pinned it in Facebook, and it's also in Slack, but it's more importantly in Facebook because that's what we're transitioning to. Okay. So I know that, and please ask questions as we go. Chinese medicine it can be intuitive once you get a grip on it, but before then, it can feel a little bit confusing. So if you have any questions, probably somebody else does too, or somebody watching the replay will. So please do ask questions. So we're going to be talking about understanding the menstrual cycle through the lens of Chinese medicine. And I know that Ali spoke on this, our Chinese medicine theory, a few weeks ago, and that was well received, and people really liked hearing about that. So we're excited to dive in deeper into the Chinese medicine. A woman's cycle is her fifth vital sign. So it's almost like this temperature gauge to how the body is doing. And we're really blessed as women to be able to have that available to us so that we can really see how our innards are working. It can really tell us a lot about our health and our vitality.
So we'll just start with a little bit of a refresher. I don't remember exactly. I think Ali might have touched on some of these things, but we never really went into like a ton of depth. But these are just a couple of like key concepts in Chinese medicine in general that are going to be helpful to understand more about the female hormonal cycle, but honestly, like everything in Chinese medicine. And I find they're just kind of like good general concepts to, it's just a different way of looking at things. Like it doesn't get so reductionistic and materialistic. Chinese medicine and like Ayurveda and some of those traditional systems, they're more just looking at like bigger themes and patterns. And it's I just find it's a lot easier to understand things in certain ways. So qi is one of the most common terms used in Chinese medicine. And this is just kind of like your life force. They call it prana in Ayurveda. And that is just basically what's all around us. It's what's circulating throughout the body. It's a difference between like something that's dead and alive, essentially. So if you think about it, a dead body still has the exact same muscles and bones and tendons and ligaments and all like the material stuff is the exact same, but it's tough for us to even like quantify what's the difference. Well, there's no like vital force, there's no chi that's animating this body. So it's a very foundational concept. A couple of things in Chinese medicine specifically, it governs the movement. So all of like the things that are moving throughout the body, and obviously in the menstrual cycle, there's a lot of movement going on. Protection, transformation, holding, and warming. So that's one thing that we are going to be talking a little bit more about, and one of like the main things just to have a grasp of in Chinese medicine.
So chi is a very energetic concept. So it not as like physically able to observe with your eyes, and it does travel all throughout the body. In almost the meridian system in Chinese medicine, it's almost like ribbons that fly through the body, like the blood vessel system, similar. But now we're talking about the meridian system. So it's a different system, but similar. It flows through the body in a similar way.
It's
So
basically just like electromagnetic energy, if you want more of like a scientific way of thinking about it. So that's what's flowing through the body, and that's kind of like what starts before the physical processes. So that's like a precursor, I guess, to all of the physiology in our body. But obviously, you can't see it. It's harder to measure. So in Western reductionist science, that's not like we don't focus much on that, but it is like the core of how your body functions.
blood is more physical. So we're looking at the actual blood is in Chinese medicine. Sometimes some things mean the same thing in Western medicine, and blood typically does actually mean blood. So it's easier to comprehend, and it's closely linked to qi as well. The vitality of both of them are closely linked, and as you can think of with Western medicine, blood is very nourishing. It's nourishing to the organs. We need blood in order to thrive. And it anchors the Shen, which is the mind in Chinese medicine. It's like a root, right? You can think of, you've heard of yin and yang, which we'll get into next. Yin is very substance based. It's like the earth, like Mother Earth is yin, so it's going to be very grounding. Yang is more like energy. You think of it like sky, or the sun. It's like very energizing and it's more transforming and moving, whereas yin is more grounding. So the blood is very grounding. So when we have some pictures of clients coming in with anxiety, right? The Shen, the mind is very busy. Some people can actually it's not black and white, but blood can actually anchor the mind. It's very grounding to the mind. So nourishing the blood is important. And this is very interesting when we look at the menstrual cycle, because some people experience anxiety with their menstrual cycle, right? That doomsday thinking, catastrophizing, or just overall anxiety coming up when we're bleeding. And that's when we have the biggest blood loss. So it makes sense that that's when anxiety can arise.
Yeah, the cycle is a good time to kind of like bring up a lot of these things. And if you have imbalance, they can get, especially in something like blood, it's very easy to see, very apparent. So that's why Marissa was saying it's, in a way, it's a blessing that females have that opportunity because it tells you a lot about what's going on in your body. So the next thing is yin and yang. So we probably all heard about that. Basically, just like a framework of expressing the two polar opposites. So on this planet, in this reality, it's like a very dualistic thing. We have hot and cold, day and night, up and down. There's always a duality. So yin is one side of the coin. That's generally more grounding, more like substance or material based. It's cooling versus hot. It's very nurturing. Yang is the opposite. So that would be more like, your daytime versus night, more energizing, more activating. So obviously there's a lot of like, there's always some sort of yin and yang balance going on the planet, but especially the menstrual cycle, it'll be a helpful way just to describe certain phases and certain things that we want to focus on. So, and it's all kind of relative to each other. It's not always absolute, but if you think about something like qi, that's a little bit more yang. It's a little bit more immaterial, more energizing, more, energy based. Blood is more yin. It's more grounding. It's more substantial, more material. So that's, one way that you could apply that, but it's just like a general framework and way of describing things.
And then the last thing is essence, or in Chinese medicine is called Jing, and it's stored in the kidneys. And this is actually a finite resource. You only have so much of it, and you actually pass it on to your kids. And sometimes you can see this in some families that the first kid can actually be more vital, and sometimes the next kids aren't as vital, have like the robust vitality, especially if the birth order is really close together. The body doesn't have time to almost spare that jing that it's sharing with the kids. And it is the source of reproductive power in the body. So the kidneys are housing the jing, and it's actually really important for fertility, more fertility than the menstrual cycle, but also aging. And the jing can also be related to premature graying of the hair and premature aging in general.
Yeah, it's kind of just like your overall vitality, which is, somewhat related to genetics, but you can often see it passed down, kind of like similar to what you're saying about family. Sometimes it's just like a vital family. They're just like hardy people. They're very strong and they don't have a lot of health issues and they just have like good constitution. Whereas other people, it's just, they aren't dealt the best cards and they don't have that same kind of vitality.
So it is finite, meaning that there is a certain amount of it, but you can replenish it. It's just harder to replenish, um, harder than the qi, the blood, the yin, and the yang. It's probably the hardest one to replenish, but it is possible.
It's more about maintaining. You want to like, obviously as you age, you're going to decrease your vitality, your jing. It does go down, but you want to try to slow that. And then yeah, in Chinese medicine there'd be, I'm familiar with two ways to increase it. Do you remember the two ways or more?
Um, Hishu Wu?
So one is herbs or specific herbs that help to increase that. And
Uh,
the other,
oh, I feel like this is a pop quiz. I don't know.
qigong.
Ah,
So certain like energy practices can help to build this. But yeah, it's very slow thing. So you need to be diligent with these practices. But anyways, yeah, those are just some of like the main concepts that will make a little bit more sense as we go forward here. So we can talk a little bit. I guess first off, any questions about that or any comments? Have you guys heard about these before? Are they like totally new?
No, I've started, well, when we started talking about it here, past over the year, and
Hmm.
Ali as well. And then I started following some accounts on Instagram. So it's just been coming up more. So it's actually perfect timing that you guys are talking about this right now.
oh, great.
A
I
little,
love when that happens.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like Marissa was saying, it's kind of nice that they're fairly simple concepts. Yeah, like the first time you're gonna have to wrap your head around a few things, but it's not like it's rocket science or like super abstract stuff. It's kind of intuitive. So it is something that like the average person could pick up a Chinese medicine book, read it, and actually like understand it. Whereas that wouldn't necessarily be the case with like, modern some other like modern scientific health studies. So
So there are five main organ systems in Chinese medicine. Okay. Four of them are closely tied with menstruation. So the one missing is the lung. Okay. So the four that are closely tied are the liver, the kidney, as we just mentioned, the spleen, and the heart. Okay. The liver is the primary, like when we start talking about the liver in Chinese medicine and how it relates, a lot of women listening here, you might feel like, oh, this really relates. This is like really a primary one in Chinese medicine and menstruation because the liver actually stores the blood and it promotes the smooth flow of qi throughout the body. And so when that is not flowing properly, we get stagnation happening. And with that comes a lot of PMS, breast tenderness, bloating, mood irritability, changes before the period, especially that period before. This is a huge liver qi stagnation picture, and cramps as well. So the liver is like to me the primary organ here, and it's closely tied. So if you've ever worked with me one-on-one, or I know you work with the liver as well, but with menstruation support, a lot of times, no matter, when we come in with menstrual issues, the liver will be treated. As 99% of every treatment plan that we do, the liver is involved with supporting the menstruation. So it's closely tied.
And even aside from female health in general, like the liver is a big issue in today's world. We've talked about this before, but just all the stuff we're exposed to. So the pesticides and the air pollution and the plastics and all this stuff, our livers are overburdened. And we're starting to see now things like fatty liver are extremely common. Like some studies are showing upwards of 50% of people, even who are healthy, have fatty liver. So this I mean, obviously the liver does many things, so it shows up in many ways, but it's very common to manifest in female menstrual cycle as well. So it's a big problem overall, but it kind of amplifies some hormonal issues as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the next one is the kidney. So that's kind of closely tied to your Jing. So yeah, this one is a little bit more not like abstract, but it's not really the equivalent of like um, the Western kidney. So the Western kidney is more just like filtering your blood and then excreting that stuff through the urine. So the kidneys in Chinese medicine, there's like a different component to it. It's one of the major energy centers that holds kind of like your life force. And that's where the Jing, that essence, that vitality is stored. So that has a strong correlation to your fertility. So the more of that you have, the more fertile you are. Just like general growth, development, all of those things are tied into the kidneys. Um, yeah, I would say we probably don't treat that as much when it comes to like hormonal issues. But another way to think of it is your adrenal glands. So those are all closely tied as well. So if you're in like this, burnt out state, you're super depleted, then you're obviously, well, I shouldn't say obviously, but it's very common to have more issues with your menstrual cycle as well. So sometimes those are the people who feel like totally exhausted, they're sleeping all the time. They just, maybe mentally they feel like this doom, and they just like can't keep up with things. So that's also where supporting the kidneys or adrenals can support with that as well.
For fertility, getting pregnant, and also support while pregnant. The kidney, if you come in for acupuncture, the main points on the kidney will often be supported. That main point, or postpartum, that's actually so super important to be supporting your kidney. Especially if you're breastfeeding, you're giving a lot. You're still giving. You just gave for 9 months and you're still continuing to give. So you really need to replenish your own stores in this time. So the main point for the kidney, we're going to get into acupressure points, but the main point for the kidney is actually on the inner ankle, right behind. It's called the medial malleolus, in between the bone that sticks out on the inner ankle.
You're flexible enough.
The bone that sticks out on the inner ankle, and then the tendon on the back. In between here in that little meaty spot, you can just press. You can press both sides. The other side is a main point for the bladder. Sorry to be sticking my foot in your face. And you can just press in there. And it's a great spot to support the kidneys. Fertility while you're on your period, or in post-giving birth. The spleen is the next one. The spleen is important in actually as the spleen is similar to our stomach. You can think of it as like digestion. So it's actually taking nutrients from food, water, air, and transforming it into the blood and the qi. So it's important because this gives us these vital essences that we need in order to feel good. And a weak spleen can lead to a deficiency in blood, especially, and damp accumulation in the body, which can cause some other issues. But it just we need it in order to have these substances in great amounts in our body.
Yeah, it's very, very closely tied to the blood, because if you're not digesting properly, then you're not going to be able to build up the blood.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a very common pattern.
And sorry,
go ahead.
And with a lot of women who menstruate, we're bleeding monthly. So this is actually really, we're much more prone. I have yet to run blood work on a woman who menstruates, and their iron and ferritin are in a healthy, happy, like vital range, right? We're bleeding monthly. So we really need the spleen. As Tanya was just saying, she's learning that you need to support your spleen qi. It's important. We need our spleen in order to be transforming into this blood, so that we don't have this, epidemic of iron deficiency happening.
Yeah, and I guess just one thing that may come up later. When we're talking about like different patterns in Chinese medicine, we often combine the organ with one of the key concepts we talked about.
Mm.
So you can talk about like the spleen qi or the spleen yang, or the kidney yin, the kidney jing. It's like it's not all of them have all those aspects, and some of them tend towards certain patterns or other ones. Like for example, the liver is often in an excess pattern. Like there's too much, like say too much toxicity, and the liver just can't detoxify quick enough. So that's prone to like an excess pattern. Whereas something like the spleen, or I guess the kidneys would be a better example, that's often deficient. It's not like people have like too much jing or too much vitality. Like that would be very rare to happen. But kidney is something where people tend to be more deficient in, and they're overwhelmed, they're burnt out, their adrenals aren't functioning properly, so we need to build that up. But that's kind of how, when we talk about patterns, we're just kind of combining some different concepts. So when Tanya's saying like the spleen chi, so yeah, that would be a way of just talking about the energy that the spleen has to digest food. Do you want to talk about the heart?
Sure. So the heart, I was saying before with the Shen, and how sometimes when we bleed, we have more of a prone, we're more prone to anxiety. That's because the heart actually governs the blood, takes charge over the blood, and it houses the Shen, which is the Chinese medicine word for like the mind or the spirit. So sometimes we can get palpitations as well. This can be closely tied with anxiety. The heart communicates with the uterus via a uterine vessel called the Bao Mei. Bao Mei?
My.
Bao Mai. So the heart's closely involved, but I'd say more so in the way that it relates to anxiety and mental health around your menstruation. And true postpartum as well. We're much more susceptible to being in a state of deficiency postpartum.
So those are kind of like the main organs involved. There's obviously, like, this is just a simplification. There's five main organs, like Marissa was saying. We call them the five yin organs, but they also have paired organs as well. So we're not going to get into all that, but if we just focus on like kind of the basics, this will cover vast majority of the issues that people have. So the next thing that we wanted to talk about.
Does anybody have questions before we go on? I know these are somewhat new concept. Like Chris was just saying, it's all new to her and she's fascinated. Is this making sense? Do you have questions before we continue? I just want to make sure like the foundations of this is clear. Good. Okay, awesome. Okay, awesome. And Michelle, I know you have some info or some wisdom on Chinese medicine. So if you ever want to share or add in, please, we welcome that. Before we get into the Chinese medicine theory, just let's hop back into Western medicine mind for a moment.
Oh, not again.
I know.
Western.
I know. Okay, so here we have the menstrual cycle. When we're looking at the way that our hormones fluctuate through the month, I really like this image because it'll show you the actual follicular development, which is how our body like releases an egg, but also what happens throughout that month, our hormones and how that flows, but then our also endometrial cycle at the bottom. This is our blood that comes around the uterus, right, to house a baby or to shed. So it starts here in the follicular phase. There's two phases. The first half of your cycle until you ovulate is called follicular. The second half is called luteal. So you can see that the follicular phase, day one, is day one of bleeding. Okay, so this is menstruation. Your body is sloughing off the endometrial layer, and this is when we get menstruation. This can last 5 days, 7 days. Sometimes they're spotting a little bit longer, but usually not longer than around, ideally 4 to 5 days. Sometimes it's a little bit longer. You can see here that this is when hormones are typically at its lowest. Okay, this can actually translate to low energy around the period. Of course, it's a very energy intensive time to be bleeding. So the hormones being low actually reflect that. And I think it's a very protective mechanism on the body to say, hey, let's chill. Let's chill for these 3-4 days. And let's have this low energy so that we can do this bleed and have this time of introspection, this time of yin, right? Grounding. And then we get into that fertile phase where the energy woof comes back and we can feel that change happening. So you can see that estrogen really rises in this first half of the cycle. When LH peaks, 24 hours later, we get ovulation. And after ovulation, estrogen says pretty much, see ya, goes down quite a bit, and progesterone takes over. Sometimes some women can feel, from one stage, you can feel around like week 1 to week 2, week 2 to week 3, week 3 to week 4, week 4 to week 0, back to bleeding. You can feel the changes in your body. And this is just kind of shows that progression along. If you get pregnant around here, these hormones will not dip, they'll continue to rise, especially progesterone. If you do not, that's what happens here. And then we come back to menstruation. So we might flip back to this just to help you to understand a little bit more when we're talking about the Chinese medicine theory, and it closely ties with the Western view of it. Makes sense? Anything to add?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just, yeah, when we talk about it next, we're just going to divide it into 4 different phases, basically. So
Yeah.
you have your menstruation, then the follicular phase, then you have your ovulation, and then your luteal phase.
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about, just starting from the beginning to the end. So first phase is the menstrual phase. So that's when you're going to start bleeding. So the blood is moving, obviously, and things are transforming. As Marissa said, this is when your hormones are going to be at the lowest. So low estrogen and progesterone, and your uterine lining is shedding. So what you want to do from a Chinese medicine perspective is make sure that the blood is moving. So if it's stagnant or stuck, then that's when you get a lot of symptoms. And make sure that we're supporting the liver qi. So the liver qi is what moves that blood and prevents the stagnation. So that's kind of like, what we want to focus on. I guess you could also say building blood, but you want to make sure that it's moving primarily. So when we're talking about diet, yeah, there's a lot of different things. A lot of people are going to crave like higher iron-rich foods because you've lost a lot of blood, and obviously it depends on your situation. If you're someone who's like much lower in ferritin or iron, then you're probably going to be craving that more. Other people may be fine, but generally a lot of people want to have like more red meat. So iron-rich things or just blood-building foods. So not necessarily like in Western medicine, when we're talking about like blood-building foods, they're probably only going to think about like iron. But then there's other components too, other foods that can build, blood in Chinese medicine. So lamb, beef, beets. So a lot of like the red foods are good. A lot of things that are black as well. So like black beans, dates apparently. Yeah, I'm not as familiar with that one. But and then other warming foods, things like ginger. And this is also a time that sometimes, again, depends on the person, but you may be craving some more carbs during this time as well.
So this is a huge time of movement. You can see in that chart below that the blood was, the endometrial lining is thick and it's starting to move out. So that's going to be our focus is movement. So with movement, you actually want to avoid cold and raw foods because you think of like the coldness as like, ooh, stagnating, like it makes it stick. So with movement, we get more flow and blood flow when we have warmer things. So that's why the ginger is in that list. Even cinnamon is one of the herbs that you can be having. This is really great for movement. You're encouraging the movement of blood out. And you can, with that, have warm compresses on the abdomen. A lot of women like that with their period. It makes them feel better because you're really trying to get rid of anything cold that can cause cramping or just overall stagnation in the uterus. We're just encouraging that smooth flow. So exercise, because energy is going to be typically lower, especially the first day or 2 of your bleed, something gentle. You don't really want to, like, couch is fine, like chill, definitely, but something gentle is still great. Often we feel better once we get out and go for a little walk or do yoga or something just more intuitive with your body, something gentle. You're not really pushing yourself too much. Bleeding is very energy intensive. That's also why it's recommended to do higher carb around then. Just you're giving your body like the energy it needs. That's why we often crave sweets, right? We're craving these quick bursts of energy. So you can do something like, sweet yam and things like you're giving yourself this carb and so that you don't have to like be constantly having a chocolate bar all day to give you that energy. Krista says she typically makes organ meat on my first couple days of the cycle and it substantially helps. Yeah, that's fantastic. Iron-rich foods. I have one of my best friends, she always says like craving a steak. Like day one, she knows she's going to crave a steak and she gets herself a steak on day one of her period, like every single month. So it's great to know and trust your cravings when it comes to those types of like, yeah, organ meats and steaks or just iron-rich foods in general. There's 3 acupressure points that you can do with your period. Now, we're going to introduce them. And I find, ever since learning this in naturopathic college, liver 3 is a huge one for me that comes up. I can actually feel it almost aching before my period, like it wants to be pressed on or needled. Liver 3 is one of my favorite ones. So it's in between the first and second toe. Are you getting up to show your foot?
No, I was going to see if I could just pull up a picture because that'd probably be easier.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to continue sharing the document or not.
Yeah, it's sharing your screen.
Oh, sharing the screen. Okay. You can keep talking if you'd like.
Okay, so it's in between the first and second toe. Okay, so the big toe and then the next toe. You find basically the point in which the bones are coming together. Yeah, this is hard to say with my words.
Because probably be easier. No, it's not the best picture.
Here, this one. I like that. It's showing
Sure.
showing liver 2. Yeah, that one. Oh, yeah. Just move this. We can take it.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. Just move it over there. Okay. So liver 3 is this point here. Okay, so you can feel in between your toes. There is a spot here, liver 2, like right in the webbing. And then you feel with your finger almost push back, push back until you feel the bones coming together. There's actually a really tender spot in here that you can press with your hand. And try and stimulate. Now, it depends on where you are in your cycle right now, but if you're approaching your period, you might feel like it's extra tender. This is a great point to stimulate as you're approaching your period or on your period because it can help with that liver qi to flow, to promote the blood and the qi flowing.
Yeah, that'd probably be the main point
Definitely.
during this time.
We'll just bold it. We won't go through all of the points. We'll have them here for your reference, and if you want, we can always talk about them. But just to not overwhelm you, we'll just go through 1 or 2 main ones, just to keep it simple and foundational.
Yeah, and the herbs, we probably won't go into too much depth either because a lot of these aren't like very common herbs. But yeah, we talked about some of the warming things. So cinnamon is a big one in Chinese medicine, ginger as well. Those can be very helpful. Or just like your standard liver herbs as well. So things like dandelion and burdock and things that just help with flow. But whatever feels good, even just like a warm tea is like supportive, right? Doesn't always matter what it is, but just something that's going to be relaxing and helping the spleen as well. So yeah, you can experiment and see what works well for you. And there's a couple different kind of common pathologies that you would see. So we talk a lot about stagnation, so things just like not moving properly. When that gets to a certain point, it turns into what we call stasis. So that's would be when like things are not moving at all, and that's when you start to get things like actual clotting. So a lot of people will report that, like physical clots, and then usually the pain changes from like with stagnation, it might just be more like cramps, like general type stuff. But when you get that stasis, that's like a lot more intense and it's typically more pinpointed. You can say like, okay, it feels like a stabbing pain. It's like right here. Or some people just have like a lot of painful periods and they have to take a bunch of, painkillers, that type of thing. So that is often a sign that you have some sort of blood stasis, which means there's stagnation and things aren't moving properly. And almost always you're going to want to focus on the liver in some capacity there.
Cold in the uterus is another pattern, and this is relieved by heat, and you'll typically have some more dark bleeding. Cold will stagnate things as well, so stagnation is a big theme. Liver qi stagnation, as I mentioned earlier, is the most common pattern when it comes to menstrual issues, and this is PMS, cramping, breast tenderness, that generalized cramping, like Andrew was saying. When qi flows freely, there is no pain. When there is pain, qi is blocked. This is a TCM proverb. I have such a hard time with words sometimes. And yeah, it's true. So like the Chinese medicine, really, we need to have everything flowing in order to be healthy, vital, optimal. So a lot of times, like even, shoulder pain or knee pain, like this is a chi issue. The chi is not able to flow anymore. So that's a lot of the treatment protocol, is to encourage the flow of chi. Okay, so phase one, menstruation. Any questions? That's happened to me, really bad clots. Yeah, sometimes they could be big. And there is, endometrial tissue that can come out, and they can be pretty small. But some clots, I have patients report that they're as big as like a loony or a toonie, and they can actually feel it passing through them. And once it passes, it feels better. That's stasis. You think about when blood sits, it becomes clotted, right? So that's the stasis. If that's happening, then we really want to encourage that movement in the uterus. So heat is great for that. Some of the herbs, everything on this list here, especially liver 3, a really great point to stimulate. And you might notice that some months are worse than others. Like the liver, I said up above, it regulates the smooth flow of emotions. So if you've had a really stressful month, this isn't like hard and fast true, but sometimes with more stress, or especially if it was emotional stress, a lot of suppression or things happening, you can have a really bad period that month, right? And that's that stagnation, because stagnated emotions can also stagnate chi.
Do you guys remember what emotion is specifically correlated to the liver?
Anger.
Nice.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, so like
Anybody feel angry as you approach your period?
Absolutely.
That's that liver.
yeah,
Even Ayana now, she's 13, and like we can tell. Like I mean I can tell Sean's like so, but I can tell, oh my gosh, she gets so irritated, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just like me.
Well, you can use some of these principles to help her too. And
Yeah.
honestly, like, I don't know how old you were when you realized that, oh, it's my period coming. But I think it's so beautiful that you'll be able to really help her to understand her emotions.
Yeah.
Like, you're feeling angry, and you're valid in feeling angry. And this could be hormonally tied. So it doesn't make you just feel so like, what's wrong with me? Like sometimes I'm just angry
Yeah.
for no reason, right? It's just
Yeah.
so helpful to be like, you're valid, and here's the potential reason.
Yeah, yeah. I don't remember when I realized, probably as an adult, because
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't have my mom to like kind of tell me things like that. But with Ayana, I definitely teach her to be aware of certain things, or she it's so obvious. It's like she's craving chocolate, or she's more tired, which Ayana hates napping, but like when she's close to her period, she'll nap. It's so cute. It's so sweet because she'll definitely understand her body more for sure. Just when I point these things out for her. And yeah, it's good. It's good to learn more about your body for sure.
It is. It's honestly so empowering. So she's lucky to have you.
Oh, thank you.
okay, so we can move on to the next phase. So that is the follicular phase. So after the bleeding's done, and we want to focus on blood and yin replenishment. So blood is naturally more yin. They kind of go hand in hand. So we're trying to rebuild that. You're going to start to see estrogen rising in that first half. And this is when your follicle develops for potential, what's the word?
Ovulation,
No, for, well, yeah, ovulation, but then
implantation.
implantation, no. Fertilization, I don't know. There's a different one. But anyways, um, so we're focusing on nourishing the blood and yin. So a couple of different things for that. It kind of, I mean, obviously, it's not like you do the one phase and then it distinctly just moves into the next phase. They're going to be flowing into each other, right? So you want to keep that in mind. It's just like a gradual flow. It's going to be slightly different for each person, but we're still kind of focusing on that building as your energy is rising. So a lot of the same foods as before. So if you're craving like more red meats or iron-rich foods, that's great. Things like bone broth are excellent. I think before I said black beans, but black sesame is another really good one to help build that yin and that jing in particular. So it's a good time to still be resting and rebuilding your energy, but you will notice that you're starting to get a little bit more energy. So that's when you will likely be doing some more exercise. Maybe during your actual menses, you were just doing some walking or some yoga or some stretching. Now you'll probably be feeling like, okay, maybe I want to start doing some like cardio or like get back into the gym, not push it super hard, but like, get back into some strength training. So those can be helpful things, but we're kind of gradually building up and still trying to rebuild from the loss.
Yes, it's a huge, huge time of building that endometrial layer again. Like Andrew said, just right after your bleed, so it's right after a big loss. So the biggest focus here is nourishment. Yeah, so acupressure points, I'd say the biggest one here, would you agree? Spleen 6?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So spleen 6, let's look it up. Where are you going? Get there. So it's on the leg, on the inner side of the leg. And again, it's another tender point. And it might not feel tender at first when you're first trying to find it. It might just feel like every other spot on your body, but be patient, really feel into the spot that we're kind of trying to show you, because you can feel a sensation, especially the more you do it and at different times of the month. Again, spots kind of light up at different times of the month. So remember, the kidney 3 is on the inner ankle. Yeah, where Andrew has the cursor there, behind that bone and before the tendon. So if you want to find kidney 3, this actually might help you to then bring your thumb up your leg a little bit, about 3 fingers, like a chun is about 3 finger widths, up your leg from on top of that bone that sticks out on the inner ankle. You're going to try and find a tender spot in there, and it's just off of the bone that you'll feel just behind it towards the tendon. Has anybody found it? It's a really good spot for building, nourishing, grounding. You think it's like, close to the bottom of your leg, so it's a very, very grounding spot. You actually avoid this spot in pregnancy because it's almost too grounding. You don't want to bring the energy of the baby downwards prematurely. So it's a very nourishing spot. Really nice to be activating and pressing on during your follicular phase. And you can do this during your bleed as well. It's not like you have to only focus on moving and then only building. It's nice to kind of build and move at the same time as well. Like Andrew said, like it's very fluid. So some common pathology examples, blood deficiency. You can see this as like a very pale period. Our period really should be bright red, has lots of iron, lots of nutrients in it. So you can see this as more of a pale period. Or dizziness. I had a patient who used to faint with every period. This is a blood deficiency. And you can really think of this in Western world too as like an iron deficiency, right? Dry skin can also present because you don't have the nutrients. You don't have the nutrients for the blood to kind of circulate and be nourishing the skin. Yin deficiency, this looks an awful lot like menopause or even some symptoms in perimenopause, because yin is very estrogen related, right? And in menopause, often the estrogen starts to go down. So this is where we see hot flashes. You think of the yin deficiency, that grounding nature is not there, so the heat can rise easily, right? So we can start to go, all of a sudden we're flushed because the yang, the heat is not rooted.
And you have more yang relative to yin. So when you have yin deficiency, you're a little bit lower. So that leaves you a little bit more yang, a little bit more heat, but it's not necessarily like a good vital heat. It's we call it an empty heat. So that's when sometimes you feel like, physical hot flashes, or your face might be getting more red, especially at night. Insomnia, you just feel like you're agitated. You're just feeling like some heat at night. So that's often because you don't have enough yin to ground and balance that out.
Yin is also the nighttime's primary. We have yang, which takes over during the day. There's still yin during the day, but yang is primary. Yin is more nighttime, right? More grounded. So that's why a lot of the symptoms come up a lot at night, because it's extra important. This is the yin dominant time, and the yin's just not there to root. Dry vaginal tissue as well. The body is very intelligent in that it kind of spares. If it has limited resources, it's going to spare certain tissues. you know, we're getting into, especially in a menopause situation, well, you know, we don't really have much, the fertility isn't there anymore. So intellectually, the body's like, well, we don't need to be, you know, having sex anymore because fertility, we're not reproducing anymore. So it's one of the areas that the body will spare, you know, giving nutrients if it's low. Obviously, it's very agitating, and obviously, women, you know, going through menopause, you know, deserve to have sex and enjoy it as well. So it's going to be a very agitating symptom that comes up. And then, like Andrew said, insomnia. Okay. Any questions? No. Okay. Oh yeah, please.
Oh,
Oh, we're
am I frozen?
no, I think we might be.
Oh.
Sorry about that.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can. We can.
Just I guess on the topic of that, what are your thoughts on, I guess, women still having babies in their 40s? Because, you know, obviously Western medicine says, you know, when you reach 40, you know, it's like you're late kind of thing, right? But I always say this to my friends. I go, I feel like I can have babies right now. Like if I, you know,
Yeah.
and almost like I wish I had more when I was 40 or like just a couple years ago. Now I feel like more of their age compared to my age is more of one of those things. But in terms of my body, I feel like I can have a baby. Right? So I wonder like what is Chinese traditional medicine think about that? Um in terms of
Yeah.
age and having children.
Oh, good question. I can speculate. Do you know any facts about that? Because I can speculate.
No, I was just thinking about like the 8-year cycles, but
What's that?
maybe,
The 8-year cycle.
yeah,
Okay.
that's all I can think of really.
You can share that if you want.
Yeah, well, basically, like there's kind of like a roadmap, and there's something significant about like doing things and development in 8-year cycles. So I can't remember off the top of my head, but there would be like a sweet spot. So say around like, yeah, 24 and 32, like between that window, I think that's the main kind of reproductive window. Not that you can't do it outside, but then your Jing will start to decrease after that. So it's going to be more difficult for some people, obviously, once you get to that phase. But yeah, other than that, I don't really know.
I think it's going to be very subjective based on the person. Like if you feel vital and you feel like you can have a baby, then I truly believe that that's like your body will meet you where you're at. Like if you have adequate Jing, yin, yang, blood, qi, then yeah, you're going to be fertile into your 40s for sure. So I think that like, you know, not to say like age is just a number, but truly it is like for each person, it's going to depend on your resources. So I think having a baby in your 40s is a-okay as long as you have the resources. Um, I was gonna say something, but then my laundry machine's singing its song and it distracted me. You know, even in your 40s, actually, that's what I was going to say. The risk of having the risk, the benefit, or like there's a chance of having twins in your 40s because your body's actually putting out double eggs. It's actually putting out more eggs. Scientifically, it's just proven that the statistics of having twins increases as you age. I think that's pretty cool to look at too. You know, like your body's not giving up. Sometimes what you could feel hormonally, things are changing, but your body's really not giving up. And I think that, you know, tuning into that will tell us the most about if you're still fertile and if your body is still down to have babies in the 40s. Yeah. So all this to say, if you're feeling like you want a baby in your 40s, do it. I mean, start trying.
No, I'm just saying. No more, but you to have that conversation sometimes when I think about it, because they say like when you go, say in your 40s and you go to OB, then they start doing a bunch of tests and all these things, right? That feels more scarier, right? And it's almost like they put a fear on women, right? And sometimes maybe that's not needed because our bodies, maybe up until 45, maybe even 50, we can do it, right? So,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, the after 35 is considered a geriatric pregnancy, which is wild. Like you're not geriatric yet, but you think about the general population and overall health, antioxidant status, things like you're not maybe your eggs aren't optimal. And maybe that's why it's called geriatric, right? We're having more fertility issues these days. Yeah, we just won't know the answer. But yeah, if your body is producing eggs, you're feeling good, then by all means, start trying. Not that you have to, but we'd support that.
So next phase is
Sorry, we only have 5 minutes left. Do you want to get into the next one?
no, yeah, we don't have to.
Does anybody have any questions?
It can just be like female hormone stuff in general. It doesn't necessarily have to be related to Chinese medicine, but any
Yeah, I have a question.
tips?
Would the acupoints, like if you don't do them at home, or is there the practitioners that you can go see, would acupuncture just be the same? Like, would they be putting the needles in the same spots you guys are speaking about here in the acupoints section?
A good acupuncturist will not follow a protocol. They will read your pulse, your tongue, and come up with
Oh,
a plan based on where you're at. Uh, they might
okay.
ask you where you're at in your cycle, depending on, how good they are at reading pulse and tongue. Or they can actually feel in your pulse where you are at in your cycle and then support you that way.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah,
They
so
customize it every time then.
a good acupuncturist will. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, good question.
Got it. Thank
Yeah,
you.
these are more of like some of like the standard, more common points, but there's like hundreds of different points and different combinations, certain like synergistic points. But yeah, just for like at home use, the acupressure can be very helpful. And
If
sometimes they'll do different things too, like moxa, which is like a little like heat stick, and then they can like with certain herbs, and they'll do that around the point if you need more yang. Or there's like the electroacupuncture, so there's different kind of ways to use it. But yeah, I think sometimes we forget how powerful that just like a self treatment can be, or doing it on someone else, just finding a tender point. And that's another way just to do it too, like just figure out, okay, where do I get tension? Do I always get tension on one specific area of my body? And then you can look up too and realize there's certain meridians that run, like for example on the inside of the leg. And if you're always noticing like, okay, my leg is like always on the inside, it's always sore and tender, then maybe there's an issue with that meridian and things aren't moving properly. So you don't necessarily need to hit that exact point, but just feeling like where you have tension, finding out some patterns, and just poking around a little bit.
Awesome. Thanks.
I have a patient who struggles with period cramps and a lot of period issues, and she'll come in every month, a week before her period for acupuncture. So it's just once a month she comes in, and we treat liver qi stagnation and get that flowing and moving for her. And she said, being consistent with that is one of the best things she could do for her period. Her period is so smooth just from that change alone. So it is very powerful. If you're working on like the blood or that yin level, acupuncture will take a little bit more time because acupuncture is working a lot with the chi. So you'll have faster results with like chi based things like chi liver chi stagnation. However, have worked with a lot of women in menopause, supporting them and helping to support like yin in their body, and acupuncture still does wonders for them. It just takes a little bit more time to really feel the benefit and hold the benefit from that, but acupuncture is amazing. So if you can find somebody local to you who does acupuncture, it's amazing. You'll feel very supported.
I have a question. So I actually have never looked into it, so I don't know anything about it. But postpartum, um, don't have my period yet.
Yeah.
What phase am I in?
Oh, good question. That's a really good question.
Yeah, because I know for some, like I am breastfeeding, and for some people it can come right away when you're breastfeeding. It could come after you stop breastfeeding. It could come at 8 months. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I would think that I don't know, this is me guessing, but I feel like you're in luteal phase or sorry, follicular phase right now, but it's long, 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 long.
Hmm.
You're in the building phase because what will happen is your body, you just gave birth, and then you gave birth to a placenta afterwards, and then there's a few weeks of bleeding, right? So then now we're into like that rebuild, nourish blood, nourish chi state.
Yeah.
And then eventually, once your body is at the state where it's very well supported, it will feel safe enough to ovulate, meaning your body's like, let's go again.
Hmm.
Right? So that's your body being like, I have everything I need here to make another baby if we wanted to today. So I just thinking of it, and again, this isn't, I'll have to look it up to make sure I'm right, but I think that you're in that follicular phase, that nourished blood, nourished chi. It's just going to
Okay.
be elongated, not just the week. Does that make
Yeah, I'm just thinking so that I should be focusing on those
Yeah.
things. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Thanks.
the building.
Hmm.
Yeah. But I'm going to look that up to make sure. But it makes sense.
It's never crossed my mind, to be honest. Never thought about that.
What, which phase
Yeah.
postpartum is? Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question. Krista says, I got mine fairly quickly, even though I was breastfeeding around 8 weeks postpartum with both kids. So your body was ready to go. I feel like it would be follicular phase for sure because you're still bleeding from birth and hormones are whack. Yeah, there's a lot your body's. Or maybe there's like a fifth phase, maybe it doesn't fit into any of these categories perfectly. I'm gonna look it up. Great question. Thank you.
In Chinese medicine, generally, like postpartum, it's like common sense stuff, but they spend a lot of time on convalescence. So like the mom is like resting hard, and they're making having like organ meats and congis, which are like basically like rice cooked for a long time with like herbs in there and soups and stews and all sorts of stuff to help like rebuild the body. So supporting the spleen is really important because that's going to help rebuild your blood. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of it is common sense, but they do spend a lot of focus on helping to rebuild the blood and the jing, so that you can have another child or just get back to your vitality. So it's a lot of it would align with the principles of the follicular phase and that you're trying to rebuild, obviously.
Krista just mentioned the 40 days of rest. It looks incredibly nourishing, and I wish we did that here. Yeah, that's a Chinese medicine practice and an Ayurvedic medicine practice as well, that there's 40 days that you barely leave your bed and everybody brings you everything in bed as much as possible. And it's literally 40 days of rest. You're really like strongly discouraged from going outside, even like no walks, and it's like really this state, this phase of convalescence, deep convalescence. Yeah, it's really is a time of nourishment.
And then when you're recovered, you do the Christian 40-day fast.
Ooh, complete opposite.
I wonder why they always choose 40 days.
Must be something
special there.
significant. Yeah. Any last questions?
No, but I love the new setup. The Facebook page is awesome, and it was really easy to find the link, and I got a notification. It's great.
Okay, awesome. And did you get the email with the Google link, the Google Calendar invite?
Yes, that too. Yes, thank you. My only issue is that I use my Gmail more than I do like for my calendar. So I was trying to figure out how to transfer it. I might have to give you a different email so that if you send me the invite again, it will save onto the calendar that I use the most. Because
Okay.
For my Outlook, for some reason, it's not as user friendly on my phone, I find. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. Okay, send us the preferred email. I'm gonna make
Yeah.
a list. I'm gonna ask people who wants to actually be invited on their Google, calendar or not, just so that it feels convenient for you instead of annoying that there's always that in your calendar. And then we'll go from there. And any other
Yeah.
suggestions, please bring them our way. We love hearing from you guys and meeting the needs that you guys have too. Of
Thank you. Thank you so much. Great job.
course. Thank you guys. Thank you all. And great, Michelle. We'll accept your friend request and accept you into the group ASAP. And thanks for coming, Michelle. It's so good to have you in the group again. And thank you all for being here. Just so much love for you guys. And yeah, we'll see you in 2 weeks, and we're going to be making hummus and falafels.
I
Wait.
can't wait. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
We'll send you guys a little grocery list and let you know how to prepare. It won't be a ton, but basically you're just going to need chickpeas, a few other things.
Okay, have a wonderful day and week, everybody. We'll try and post a little something next week. We'll try and figure that function out too. Okay, bye.
Thanks. Bye.